Our next speaker is Craig Palfrey. He's a top of the table member, also based in Cardiff. Craig's practice, Penguin Wealth, has won many numerous awards over the years, and more recently, the Finance Awards Wales 2021. So congratulations to Craig and his Penguin team for that. Craig's talk for us today is Things I Wish I'd Known. Thank you. Over to Craig.
Cheers, Jane. Looking at the names, guys, I'm afraid I might be teaching quite a few of you to suck eggs. But hopefully anything I say you can maybe mold, change, it might make you revisit something. I think I've worked out that I've got about 17 ideas I'm going to try and squeeze into 15 or so minutes. I know I talk quick, guys, but you know, it is what it is. We were due to be flying to Amelia Island tomorrow to speak next week, and both the Americans have had a lucky escape, so they probably wouldn't have understood a word I'd have bloody said. So I've been approached by a few advisors in and around South Wales over the last couple of years. I'm sure many of you had. I just had one in this week who's just been a paraplanner for a couple of years, has left, and he's just got on his own. He's managed to find someone to give him a chance, and he asked if he could come in and if I'd share some ideas, share some tips, in true MDRT fashion. I obviously said yes, and it just got me thinking. It got me thinking, if I had to start again, knowing what I know now, what key things would I make sure I did from day one? I mean, I think it's always good to do these things with other new advisors, and because I usually learn a few things as well. They usually drop a book or a practice or a process they had somewhere else that I can borrow from. But what I've noticed more and more is how surprised I've been at how the things that I or Penguin take for granted, the things that we assume are the norm, just actually aren't. You know, most of the things that we've picked up from conferences like conferences like this, best practice groups, you know, all the things that we've done to invest in ourselves, they're actually still not commonplace. So the first thing I would do, I think, if I had to start again, is I'd make sure that from day one I had a pre-meeting questionnaire. We call it the lifetime focuser. I don't think it matters whether I'd be attracting client number one, and I was afraid it might put them off. One of the best things we ever did many years ago was introduce something we call the lifetime focuser. We used to send it by post back in the day. Then it became a fillable PDF. It amazes me how many people still didn't know they had to do a save as to fill it in so that the data stayed in it. We used to send instruction videos, and we still use that occasionally. And then thanks to our UK chair, we moved it into jot form at the start of lockdown. Although we don't always use that, Sarah, because again, some people can't seem to struggle with that, but we give them plenty of options. But I say the idea was shared with me many years ago, and I implemented it straight away, and I think it was one of the best things we ever did. I think there are many benefits to this process, and I might miss some out, but a couple that I think is, firstly, it shows commitment from the prospect. If they're not prepared to spend 3, 5, 7 minutes filling in the basic details, then maybe they weren't that serious about getting some advice in the first place. I think it makes that first meeting, discovery meeting, fact find meeting, whatever you call it, far more meaningful. But I think more importantly, it gathers the information so you don't have to sit opposite someone and arguably waste your time and their time asking them the basics. I was with a mortgage advisor a couple of months ago who still spends half an hour on the phone asking them who they work for, what their salary is, who their loans are with. Why wouldn't you just make sure that within 10, 15, 20 minutes after you've built some rapport, you can get into the fun stuff. You can start talking about goals. You can draw some family trees. You can get into the fun stuff rather than sitting there, you know, writing down dates of birth and stuff like that. And I think as you get bigger, you can use it to filter out the prospects that you don't want to meet, or that you recognize quite early just aren't a fit for your business. So you can make the phone call, have a chat with them, give them some free advice, and then send them off to Sittings and Advice, Money Advice Bureau, and all the various different things that are out there. So for me, it's an absolute must. But I think another trick that I missed for many years that we've introduced a couple of years ago is then doing the same for your review meetings, your forward planning meetings, your annual meetings, whatever you call them. You know, we send out what we call the forward planning prep sheet, and we ask clients to tell us what's changed, what's on their mind. And we kind of insist on it before meetings. We chase them with emails a couple of days before if it hasn't come in. And it's amazing what information people will share with you, so that when you get to that meeting, you can dive straight into the stuff and you already know some of the things. I think they write down sometimes things they might not have said to you. You know, new grandchild, divorce, bankruptcy. Thankfully, I haven't had many of them. But, you know, they're kept awake at night by the volatile markets that we've just had, or the, you know, the amount of times people tell us about their health situations, you know, so you can get straight into asking about that stuff. But yeah, if you're not doing that, I would strongly recommend it, and I would be doing it from day one if I was starting all over again. The next thing I'd do is I'd read a book called Traction by Gina Wickham. I'm sure many of you are familiar with it because I've mentioned it before, and I know others have. Even if it's just you or you and a plus one, or you're in someone else's business, I think it's a great book that can give you direction. It helps you get organized, helps you plan, focus, create strategies for you as yourself, or if you're running a practice, in the key areas of people, process, data, marketing. It'll help you hold yourself and others, if you've built a team, accountable. It helps you create manageable targets. I've just spent the last 2 days off-site doing our planning for 2022, and the traction model just made those 2 days fly by and made sure that we got the right outcomes as we plan for the next couple of years. It helps you create manageable targets, what they call rocks. So you got things to aim for, and you can break them down as you go and tick them off as you accomplish them, and give yourselves a pat on the back. But it's made a massive difference to our business. I can still remember the moment I was reading it on a holiday in Italy a couple of years ago, and we implemented it almost straight away, and it's been a massive help for us, and I know for others on the call. I would certainly, looking back, invest more time at the start on time and money where necessary on conferences like CISI, MDRT, PFS, events where speakers are other practitioners. I still find, seeing some of the social media chatter around the New Model Advisor conference, I can't believe how many experienced practitioners are still going to those things where you got fund managers just talking rubbish and trying to sell you their stuff. For now, I'm no Paul Armstrong, where I'm completely against them, but I think those things are just a waste of time, and people go for CPD and a free drink. But as I look back, I wish I'd done more of the investment early doors that I do now, because I think the acceleration could have been completely different. But when attending these, an idea I picked up a couple of years ago, I would make sure I have a blank page on my iPad or in my notebook, and I'd write 3 headings on it: today, tomorrow, one day. End of today, you put the ideas you plan to implement within the next 7 to 14 days. Tomorrow would be anything you think might take you 3 months to get done. And then one day might be things you'll come back to once you've expanded, you've got more time, you've got more money, more resource, wherever it might be. Say, I found this invaluable on top of my normal usual notes. So today, for example, you might write under today for today, you'd write buy traction. Under tomorrow, you might go introduce a pre-meeting questionnaire, but you don't want to do that straight away because you might need to think about it. You might need to get compliance approval. And your Sunday might be to attend MDRT or top of the table conference, for example. The next thing that I'd do is I would create a monthly communication. We've had one going out of our practice for 13 or so years now. You could call it a newsletter. We call it the Wealth Management Update. I'd name it. But it gives you a chance to have just a client comms piece that puts you underneath your prospect, your client's nose consistently. It can be used as a lead magnet to get people who aren't known to you signed up so they get something from you. But more importantly, for your existing clients, just something that you can keep putting out there where you can tell them about initiatives, you can tell them about things they've missed, like powers of attorney and wills, as Helen was saying. You can put videos on there so they watch a video about you, the blog. And if you're a one-man band, go and collaborate with a couple of other advisors in your areas, and maybe just write an article each. So you've got 4 or 5 articles a month to go out. You could start quarterly if you're just getting going. But I would tell you now, the most important thing to do if you're not already doing it is have an office news section. Again, even if it's just you and your dog, and you're putting a picture of you and him walking, or you and her, or in your case, Helen, your cat, even if you just put pictures of the cat in the newsletter. Because I tell you, we track what people actually click on, and every time the most popular articles are what the team are doing, who's got pregnant, who's passed an exam, who's been on holiday somewhere, who's met someone famous, wherever they've been. It's still the most engaging thing, that people are nosy, people like to look, and it's still, like I say, the thing that people do, and it gives you that human element, as I'm sure you've worked out. Next thing I would do is I would definitely add non-regulated stuff, have a non-regulated arm to my business, as Helen's just alluded to, with people like Costco and stuff stepping in. I would certainly add trust work, wills, powers of attorney, whatever you want to my practice from day one. You could go and work with a qualified legal practitioner in your area maybe, but my experience of trying that many years ago is that generally they're not specialists, they don't give advice, they don't work to your pace. You'll get frustrated when they take forever, they let your client down. But obviously that is one option. If you're confident, they'll refer back to you. But I would certainly go and do something. I'd either sign up for the will company, Solidus, which is my preferred provider, Countrywide, I think, is out there as well. But go out there and get that training and make sure that you can deliver wills and powers of attorney into your prospects. You don't want a client coming back to you in a couple of years' time after you've done some fantastic work for them, or the family member coming back saying that your original client has become incapacitated, as Helen was alluded to, and that you can't give them access to that person's pension because obviously they haven't got that document. Why would you leave it at the end of a meeting where the client says, yes, I'll go and see my solicitor, I'll nip down Costco and get one done? Why wouldn't you make sure that you control the narrative, you make sure it gets done, and then if something happens to your client, you've done your bit so that you can provide the family with the income or whatever it may be. But I think talking about wills and talking about keeping families together and protecting legacies will just stand you apart. I could stand here and tell you numerous stories over the last 13 years of the times that a client has engaged with us, has picked us if they were seeing others, or has moved to us because we spent that time talking about the kids, the family, the legacy. I think it will give you the most important thing is when someone does pass away, you get to know. You don't want to find out 6 months later that someone's gone, they've gone to a solicitor who's recommended them to another IFA. Next thing you know, the money you managed for 5-10 years has gone somewhere else. But if you do it well, you've got an opportunity to get easy referrals. One of the toughest things in our job, as we all know, is getting referrals. But I think if you once you do the wills and once you do the powers of attorney, if you bring that into your practice, I kick myself regularly from not doing it up until a couple of years ago after someone told me many years ago to do it. But if you hold a signing meeting, or what we call a trustee integration meeting, you can get people into your database, get more people in front of you, and meet the kids, meet the guardians, meet the powers of attorney, meet the trustees. We are now just getting the offices redone, ready for the new year, because our meeting rooms have become too small, because now we've started using this. We're sometimes finding that 7 or 8 people are coming in and our current boardrooms are too small. So we're actually spending the money regenerating the offices to move things around just to be able to accommodate more families. But what an easy, warm way to pick up more family, more money, more clients, more opportunities. You can then use that database to send copy to. You can run webinars for them. We ran an executor webinar last year that was very successful. We met a bunch of new people. You can offer referral discounts. You can offer free wills for kids for your clients. I think I shared that last time when I spoke in November, December. But I worked out that just by spending 1,500 quid with our legal team on 20 odd free wills for clients' kids, we picked up just over 30 grand's worth of new business through protection, picking up some pensions, doing some new work. So a small spend for a decent reward. But again, it's about keeping the control of the narrative, keeping the money sticky, if you're thinking long term, and stop other professionals getting access to your clients and potentially taking them somewhere else, which I'm sure we've all got stories of that happening over the years. Next thing I do is I get a robust hands-off investment process. I know many of us call that a centralized investment proposition nowadays, but something to hang your hat on and ensure all your clients are in. It amazes me how many IFAs and firms I've spoken to the last 3, 4, 5 years who are still operating without one. Just pick a horse and back it. We all can talk about asset allocation and long-term in the market and all that stuff, but why are there still some people who haven't got a clear, definable, repeatable process? There are still people, believe it or not, I'm sure many on this call are gobsmacked, and I have been, where people are still picking individual portfolios for every single client. I find that baffling. But I think that's the KIP itself is almost irrelevant, because long-term it should always do fine. It's about the communication piece. The one I've been part of for 13, 14 years now, as I look back, the most important thing that proposition did was have a communication process. I've been using something called the AIS Advanced Investment Strategy for 13, 14 years. But the thing that adds the value is the communication that comes out every quarter without fail, written in English, written for the clients, that we send to people. We tailor it sometimes to suit us. If there's a video on it, I'll sometimes re-record the video so it's ours, because we're allowed to do that. But yeah, I've been using Trusty FM, and if anyone wants an introduction to who we use, please let me know. But I've said for many years, the first discretionary fund manager out there, the traditional ones, who comes out with some good comms could clean up the market, because most of them send you stuff for you. They don't send you stuff that you can use with clients. But whenever there's a little wobble, we always get extra communications from our provider, and the amount of positive feedback is just off the scale. When we were emailing during the first lockdown weekly, almost just with a little update, and again, the amount of positive feedback from that is just massive. But again, just keeps you in front of your clients, makes them think that you're always working on their stuff. But then if something happens to you and you need to step out of the practice for a period of time, at least it's easier for someone to be able to keep delivering that and not have a load of people leave you because they don't think you're no longer looking after them. The communication can still be there, and it can be business as normal. And if you have to get a locum or another advisor in your practice, at least they know what they're benchmarking against, at least they know what they're reporting on. And I find it baffling that there are people in different practices, different people in under the same practice, and they're all doing different things. I don't understand why you cherry pick. Another simple thing that I do is I'd listen to the Maven Money podcast. For those of you who know Andy Hart, he used to be known as the Voyantist. I think his podcast is great, the way he articulates the good that we do. He's got something like 200 odd episodes now, so don't worry about listening to all of them. I'd certainly go looking for the ones where he's monologuing and sharing concepts. His early ones about human insurance and business planning. There's some fantastic little nuggets in there that I've borrowed quite a few from, and I find I can link back to doing some really good things for us in our sharing of ideas. If I was starting again and building my marketing plan, the first book that I'd read would be They Ask You Answer by Marcus Sheridan. If you haven't read it, please do. The guy who wrote it has nothing to do with financial services. He was a swimming pool salesman, but the message is universal. And if you needed to start again, you need to generate leads, you're trying to build a social media presence, it's an absolute brilliant book. I'd recommend it strongly. And leading on from that, and on the back of that book, and then generally what most of you will see me do. Sorry, Lee, the podcast is Maven Money by Andy Hart. But I would create stuff to give away. Videos, guides, brochures, write a book, as some of you know that we've done, or in our case, have someone write it for you. The monthly communications, it's lead magnets, but more importantly, things that, again, just show your clients and prospects that you're looking to educate, that you are a thought leader, something that can then become automated. Once someone downloads it, they can, they can go into an email chain. And the book was They Ask You Answer, Dave. but it's something you can sign up for. And if you haven't got the time, energy, or you think you haven't got the expertise to share some stuff, write some stuff, make it look nice, please do go and have a look at a website called independentcheck.co.uk. I know some of you on the call already use some of their stuff, but they've got things you can buy off the shelf, put your own brand on it, put on your website, put on your social media. You know, it's very unlikely that you're going to come across someone else in the same area using that stuff, but they've got some great videos on some topics. They've got some great guides, which we use. They're all on our website, which you can go and have a look at if you want to check it out first. But yeah, a great little thing that you could just get someone to do it, almost do it for you, which, you know, we're always looking for shortcuts. Next thing that I would do is I would make sure I give talks. The seminar model has worked for many in the MDRT world. I haven't done paid for seminars for many years, but I think they're a great way to get going. But go and find free ways to talk. Approach employers, women's institutes, charities, property networking groups. Go and offer to speak to solicitors, to accountants, wherever it might be, their clients. But if you can't afford to invest in seminars and you're starting again, go and speak wherever you can. But when you do, don't make it about you. Don't make it about what you want to talk about or show off your knowledge. Make sure it's in English and you're giving away information. Most people will come back to you for the detail. But I did a talk at a business recently. We were invited to speak at a large employer in South Wales. And you know, I knew all about their pension, and they were all being made redundant. So I made sure I knew about the bits and bobs of the pension, but you could almost see the whole audience sort of turning off. But when I did my little bit about wills and LPAs, suddenly the engagement went back up. So I've done it for years, just a simple thing. Okay, who in the room has got a will? Hands go up. Oh, sorry. Who in the room has got kids or grandkids under the age of 18? Most of the hands go up. Of all of you who've got kids or grandkids under the age of 18, how many of you have got a will in place? A majority of the hands go down. So then I'll ask the question, if heaven forbid you or the parents of your grandchildren died yesterday, who's going to look after those kids? And immediately you'll get someone go, my grandparents, my mother, my father, my brother, my sister. The godparents nearly always comes out. People forget that's a religious thing. And I say, no, actually, unfortunately, everyone, they legally, sometimes there'll be one who knows it, but legally they become what's known as wards of court, and local authority could arguably decide what happens to your kids or grandkids. So if you take nothing away from my talk to get today, please go and make sure your loved ones, or if it's you get wills in place, naming guardians. And when it comes to ticking the boxes at the end from any feedback, guarantee you that 60-70% of the people want to talk to you about that. Obviously, once you get them in, you get the will arranged through whatever source you decide, and you're guaranteed to pick up some work. And then hopefully by the time you get to the point where you're saying, once you've talked about the family, when you get to the point about saying about, you know, by the way, we should probably review that pension, or I think you should move it, or that investment, or you need some more protection. If you've had a chat about the family and protecting the legacy and the bloodline, they're generally going to do what you say. And again, I've got many stories about how that's worked. Last 12 months, we've been using the story of Kate Garraway for powers of attorney. So I told that story at this event a couple of weeks ago. And again, 70-80% of them ticked, oh, I want to talk to someone about an LPA. So make sure you can provide that service. Don't let someone else do it. Control the narrative, but make sure you're gaining their confidence, speaking about them, their loved ones, protecting the families, and then you can deliver on that, rather than you sit at your annual review a year later and they say, did you get that will and power of attorney sorted? And they go, no. Just make sure you can deliver it. Won't make you rich, but it's a massive value add for them and for your practice. I'd also then create some kind of advice document, whether it's a financial plan under the old CFP thing, a wealth management plan, a personal tax report, a pension summary document, retirement options report. Del Boy once said that what can't speak can't lie. I remember the very first business I was in 15-16 years ago, they had a very simple document, but it got people to understand what you were recommending and say yes. Ours has evolved quite a bit right now. It's got diagrams in it. It's got detail about the KIP in it and all that kind of stuff. But people still say to this day, people come back for their review meetings, they're still carrying that document, because usually we've put some stuff in there that they can say no to and they might want to do in the future. And they treat it as their own little Bible. But if they can follow you on the journey of why you're saying do this, do that. And I'm not talking about a suitability letter, guys. You could argue it's a version of a suitability letter. There might be some repeating too. But yeah, I think people who aren't using something to take people on a journey that you can then charge for. We charge for our planning process, and that plan is part of it. And we've got a money back guarantee on it. If it doesn't add value, don't pay for it. And I'm proud to say to date, in the 5-6 years we've been doing that, no one's not refused to pay for it. And then the final thing to do is I would make sure as early as possible I invest in a team. Get an admin person, a receptionist, a diary manager, move to a paraplanner when you're in that space. But make yourself look important. Make sure that you've got the time to see clients. It amazes me how many people still call themselves busy and they're only seeing 2 clients a week, or 4 a month, or whatever it might be, because they're doing it all on their own. They haven't got processes. Many I've met are scared of spending the money. They'd rather do it all themselves and keep more of the money, but it's a false economy. As I look back at my journey, and I've tracked my new business figures since I started in 2004, and I can work out the times when I added a new team member, because every time within a couple of weeks, couple of months, my production moved on to that next level. Someone came up to me last year at a conference in between lockdown 1 and 2, or well, on a Zoom call, and thanked me because they remember me saying to them 4 or 5 years ago, just do it. They were there talking about whether they should do it. I grabbed him over lunch and said, just do it, get a member of staff. And he actually came looking for me to say, thank you for that. And it's the best thing I ever did. But he just needed someone to sort of give him that kick. So if there's anyone on the call sat on the fence with that, get up and do it. I don't know if I've been 20 minutes or not. Hopefully you took something from that. If it's for those who have been around forever, hopefully you pick some ideas to just review something or add something. For those of you who new, hopefully that's useful. If anyone wants any introductions to Independent Check, to TDFM, anyone wants a copy of the Lifetime Focuser or the Forward Planning Prep Sheet I mentioned, reach out, email me, craig@penguinwealth.com, and I'll happily share, as I know we all do.